use cases of Web3 through DePIN.
This episode of the DePIN Hub podcast is brought to you by the DePIN Association, igniting the DePIN revolution by supercharging education, amplifying advocacy, and catalyzing industry-wide transformation to propel decentralized infrastructure into the mainstream.
Hello everyone, Daniel from DePIN Hub here, and today we have Santeri, co-founder of Auki Labs, a company pioneering decentralized spatial computing networks with the innovative Posemesh technology. We met a few months ago in Singapore during Token 2049. We got a little bit to try the devices, everything they're doing. It made me so excited about this technology, and I think that augmented reality, virtual reality is the future, and Auki Labs is building such a cool technology. So I'm really excited to have you finally on the podcast. Santeri is speaking out of Hong Kong, I think, if it's correct, right?
That's correct. I'm in Hong Kong right now.
Awesome.
I'm personally based out of Bali, but I come to Hong Kong to the office every month.
Amazing. Also on this podcast, I have Santeri, I have Max, my co-founder. I have Adrian from the Hotspot at DePIN Hub team as well. We're going to try to do a little bit of roundtable about this project, everything that's happening. Let's start by Santeri. You introduce yourself, your background, and your role at Auki Labs.
Let's do that. Well, my name is Santeri, and I'm half Finnish, half Spanish. It's a bit like trying to mix oil and water, culturally and speaking. And so I've had a very interesting upbringing. I got to live in both countries, went to study in the UK, but all of my professional career, I've really spent my time in Asia. Starting out in Beijing, most of my career was really in corporate roles, and only very recently I was able to get out of that trap of high demanding jobs, and especially out of Singapore and Hong Kong, where you live in this hub where you have this life where you feel very compelled to stay there because it's very competitive, and you're getting good salary and taxes are low. But the pandemic sort of was a bit of a miracle for me in the sense that I went back home and I was able to pause for a bit, back home being Barcelona, to spend some time with my parents. And I got to spend some time thinking. And that's where I turned into an entrepreneur. And I built my first business. It's a automated self-storage unit that I built with 130 units in Barcelona. And I've been running it from my phone, and it's been a lot of fun to have built something like that. At the same time, I got to really help my mom. She had kidney failure since I was born, and I was able to give one of my kidneys to her at the same time. So kind of two dreams coming true at the same time. Now I'm back in Asia for 2 years now, where I've been working together with my other co-founder, Niels, on building Auki.
Wow, that's such a nice story, from TradFi Singapore now, building Auki Labs, and then of course I would say heads to you, helping your family, spending time with them is also quite important, right? I think I try to go to Brazil, where my family lives, around once a year as well to spend time, because as we get old, I feel that it's important to spend more and more time with them, right? It really adds quality of life, I would say, and good memories. So you guys, we went through this whole process. COVID, going back home, and now with Auki Labs. And can you explain what it is? Because you said you have multiple names throughout the last few months or years. What is the vision of the project, and how does it aims to revolutionize spatial computing?
Yeah, sure. Well, Auki Labs is a DePIN for AI perception. And it's here to literally replace the GPS system. Essentially, as spatial computing comes in to replace mobile computing, what we will see is the need for solutions that conserve the privacy of the individual, because spatial data will essentially become so abundant and so rich that if we allow these big corporations to continue gathering our data for free, we'll be sleepwalking towards a Black Mirror episode. And essentially what I mean by this is that a DePIN for AI perception is to allow for spatial computers to perceive the physical world, to have an understanding of the physical world. And beyond that, we also make it so that it's collaborative. So a bunch of devices and AI can have a shared understanding of a physical world.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I remember you mentioned that you wanted to build like the copy of the world, right? Like a, how do you call it? Like a sibling world version
Digital
of the
twin is
world.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the word, the digital twin of the world. And how do you want to do that in terms of like the technology? Why is that so important as well?
Well, in order for devices to actually perceive the world, they're going to have a coordinate system that is shared, and have a shared understanding of in the space they're in, and to understand where all the objects are within that space. Apart from the digital objects, to also understand where walls are, where tables are. And the best way to do that is to create a digital twin. Our approach really focuses on creating relative positioning rather than real world position. What I mean by that is that we understand the relative position between the devices, and that is how we can track their movements and the location of the digital objects within the coordinate system, which we can start calling domains going forward. And that's what we're focused on building, domains.
Quick question. So I recently bought a Meta Quest 3, and some of the applications also essentially like ask you to create your boundaries. So you can walk around the room and it's going to kind of scan everything and build a positioning system by itself. How would you compare or complement your technology that you're building to what they currently have in place on those Meta Quest 3s?
That's a very, very good question. What centralized tech companies, big tech, is building today is something called a visual positioning system, which essentially requires you to build a digital twin and then use the camera to position you within that domain. And the way they do it is by creating a perfect copy of your home, uploading it into a centralized server, and then using feature points as the camera looks into this digital twin as to where you should be within that space. And the scary part of that is your cameras have to be on 24/7. And if that's the case, it means that essentially big tech will be able to see through your eyes. And if they have that ability, I would be scared for the next generation of people who are coming and growing up. Mainly because once we leave mobile computing behind and we start using spatial computers like AR glasses, they'll have the ability to see in real time what you see, hear what you hear, and also they'll want to be tracking your eyes. And if they can track your eyes, I mean, scary stuff can start happening, right? Because they can start analyzing your pupil dilation, your eyebrow movements, and they'll figure out how you feel before you know how you feel. And that sort of creates a scary little window of opportunity for big tech to sell a tiny bit of ad space right there, and you'll be doing an emotional buy rather than a rational buy. And I don't know if you ever gone out there and bought anything emotionally, but you probably did not care about the price. Imagine if you have that ability to sell any product emotionally. So you feel angry, you feel upset, you feel happy, you feel sad. And if they can see what you're seeing, they can then correlate by having a database of the things that you like to then just drop an ad right in front of you, and you could be paying multiples on that. And that's scary.
It is definitely food for thought, right? And whenever trying to use those devices. But then how does then Auki Labs make it different using like blockchain, Web3, DePIN, etc.?
We use QR codes to position you into a coordinate system. So we don't really need a digital twin, okay? I want to be very clear about this. There's no real need for digital twin apart from when there's a very specific use case for it. But of my home, if I were to create a digital space of my home using Auki technology, I would put QR codes on the floor. I would figure out where the walls are. We call those occlusion. And from there, I wouldn't need to create more information or give more information to the devices to have a seamless experience. This is kilobytes in data, so it doesn't require a lot of data to be transferred to any server. And essentially how Auki does this is by decentralizing the node services that interact with this network. And we have 3 nodes. We have networking nodes, we have storage nodes, and we have compute nodes. And essentially, networking is to make sure that we can update in real time all the devices and the digital objects within the realm so that it's a seamless experience. So when all of us are in the same space, we all see the same thing in the same place at the same time. Storage is something that I would not want to upload my home schematics or a digital twin to a centralized cloud service provider. I would probably use a user encrypted storage, and I would put it on Filecoin or something, right? And that's the way you can protect and own your own data, and then decide what you want to really do with it. And the third is a reconstruction node that allows you to, if you would like to have a digital twin of your space, to reconstruct that. And we can use decentralized GPU like Aethers to reconstruct these things.
Yeah, I think the composability in this sense is quite important, right? Because I remember I've seen something on the internet. Let's say you see on the supermarket, there's a QR code on the floor, just scan that QR code, and that would tell you exactly where you are. And then from that point on, your phone or Aethers or anything else can process the rest from there. How does that work?
Okay, so we're building for enterprise at the moment because we're trying to bring Web 2 into Web 3. And we have thought that supermarkets would be the best angle for us. Because you can imagine that if we're replacing the GPS system, we literally could be building on any industry, right? It can be hospitals, warehouses, any commercial space, malls, even outdoors, right? But we think that supermarkets are one of the best sort of first angles of attack because they have millions of square meters of physical space, and you want to overlay this on physical real estate. That's where you get the best use case for it. And so when you walk into a supermarket and you scan a QR code, the QR code that has been placed on the floor, you then access a persistent coordinate system that has all the information about the store that you've placed there. And what's very interesting about that it unlocks many different kind of opportunities for you. And one of those is AR navigation. So you know where all the products are, and you can then essentially navigate to these spots. And you can also make sure that the stores are being compliant with the kind of layouts that headquarters has requested to be done.
And that's just the beginning, right? Like you said, the malls. How many times have you spent trying to find a store in the mall, then up to the point that you need to ask for the help desk to help you direct that? So that's very, very interesting. How do you see like this augmented reality market growing through the future? Because we've been talking about augmented reality for 20 years, but just now, weeks ago, Meta released the glass. So I think the future is augmented reality, right? How do you see that going?
Well, I have a prediction. I believe that screens will die within the next 2 decades. Why would we be building all these very expensive screens that require all of those rare earth materials to be unearthed and then put on a computer and put it all together? If we can actually collapse every single screen into a device, an AR device. And this is what we're seeing from Meta, right? Because we can literally just then project anything we want in front of us. The scenario that I envision in a few decades is that you'll wake up and you'll put your hand to the right of your bed, and you have this round pad where your glasses, just normal looking glasses that we would see today, are sitting, and you just pick those up and you put them in your face, and then you'll get your first notifications. Or your mom called you. All right, you got some messages from some friends. Oh, there's this video that somebody sent you. Okay, put that up for me, right? And then you move on towards your living room and you say like, hey, I want to see the news. And now in order to use the space that you have, you don't have a TV no longer on a wall. You actually still have a couch. You sit on the couch and you have these glasses, and it projects a TV right in front of you where you would have had the physical TV. Then you move on. You say, hey, I need to go and do some work. And then you step away and you go into a table and you render a computer in front of you. And this with literally everything.
Yeah, that's super Exciting. I don't know, guys, what do you think about this feature? Is it gonna happen?
Wearing a screen on my face, so in the formal glasses, might be kind of fun, but then at the same time, I feel like balance between privacy, right, which is something that Auki Labs aims to address, becomes even more prevalent since I'm literally wearing a device on the whole time, and that it controls kind of what I see, more or less. So that's a little scary, but I think fascinating to think about.
And there's also, I think, the Meta Orion glass has a neural interface as well, from what I understand. I didn't look into it very closely, but it doesn't mean like they can actually like understand brainwaves and use that to their advantage as well to kind of upsell stuff over time? Or what's your understanding of that, Sentry?
Unfortunately, I'm not very familiar with neural interfaces on the Orion glasses, so I can't really comment on that. But, ultimately, once we get bored of the glasses, we'll move on to lenses. And once we've moved on to lenses, then we'll be projecting information through our retina from the inside out. Now, these are just kind of scenarios that are very, very possible. We are driving humanity towards these situations. You can see Elon Musk already putting, neural implants into people's heads. We've seen companies come up with AR lenses already. So it's about time. It's about how long will it take us, not if, in my opinion.
I love it that everything they're speaking right now, there's probably one, sci-fi movie that was released in the past. There's like Her, the guy I've always loved with like this assistant. I have like Google Home and Apple, etc. And then there's other ones that like everything that you see gets recorded, and then when you die, they display this for everyone to watch. There's so many things that these kind of like this dystopian future unlocks, but I think it's gonna happen eventually. That's really interesting. But anyway, let's go back to Auki projects. By the way, Auki means open in Finnish. I don't know if that's what you guys intended to, Open Labs.
Auki and the logo itself is actually from Old Norse mythology, and Auki actually means to augment something. So it's even more attuned to what we do. But yeah, it's kind of funny that it's also in Finnish. It's open. That's just a funny coincidence. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the deployment of this project right now, because you said you have 3 different servers, and then you have the Auki token as well. How does the token interface with the whole project itself? Why do you need a token?
Yeah, so we've built a burn credit mint token. And the reason why we need a token for our network is so that we can decentralize these nodes instead of having it concentrated in centralized servers. So in spatial computing, a lot of things happen very, very quickly, and the latency needs to be very, very low. So there's a lot of things you can't put on the blockchain because it's just too slow, because there's validations and there's many things that need to be sort of gone through before you get the outcome or the output. But ultimately, we still saw a few things that were very, very key for decentralization. And those were the settlement layer. And what I mean by that is that if I'm going to decentralize physical infrastructure and I am going to try and pay them for that service, if I'm going to try and do cross-border microtransactions in fiat, I will be stepping into like some very, very tough territory. Like that sounds impossible to me. And that's where crypto becomes so accessible, that anybody can set their servers across anywhere in the world, and we can pay them in any time, anywhere, without having to worry about this settlement. Then we have also the reputation. Because we are trying to build a very sort of enterprise-focused solution, we need to make sure that all the nodes act professionally, these nodes, the owners don't turn into bad actors, and that enterprises can rely on this. Essentially having a kind of a SLA. And that's where reputation becomes very important, and it's very good to manage reputation through the token by having to stake on each node if you want to earn any rewards. And if you are a bad actor, we can slash.
Yeah. I mean, I like this idea of staking to make sure that you're being a good actor. Also, in a way, the more nodes you have, the more tokens you have staked. Therefore, there's less tokens in circulation as well, which increase the value of the token, right? The product as well. Which blockchain are you planning on launching, Auki?
We have actually launched on the 28th of August, and it's on the base network. We were thinking about launching on Solana, but when in the very beginning we were struggling to find good partners on the blockchain side, because even though you have these huge L1 blockchains and they have massive teams, they're not very helpful. They don't really respond, and it's kind of difficult to find the right person to deal with. And at Avalanche, somebody understood us from the very beginning. But then over time, we realized that they couldn't retain their talent, and we constantly had somebody new to deal with. And that was kind of a bummer situation. And so we had to move chains to make sure that we were able to really launch the token well. And since it was EVM compatible, it was very difficult for us to take the decision to move to Solana. We wanted to look at it, but because it's not EVM compatible, we fell on base because we had done all the audits already. And as you know, those cost quite a lot of money. So we didn't want to put that down the drain.
Yeah, definitely. If you have to go to a different chain, complete like going from EVM to SVM, that's definitely a not fun rewrite, right?
While we're still around the token layer, I'm kind of curious. So you mentioned about the whole reward and staking system, and I was wondering, how future-proof do you think your model is really, right? Because I think what makes DePIN a little different is that you kind of have to maintain a certain level of buy pressure and maintain the offset the sell pressure, right, by the providers. And you want to make sure that everybody is coordinated, because ultimately that's what the token is there for, is to coordinate all these actors in a centralized system. So like, what's your outlook, so to say, on future-proofing that and ensuring that the service is not only stable in the form of staking, but also rewarding enough for people to continue contributing to Auki as opposed to other projects, right? Because there's opportunity cost to that.
That's a very good question. I think future-proofing our tokenomics, we've done a lot of work and digging really deep. And that's why we took 3 years to launch a token, actually. Like, if you think of it, it's a very long time. So we got to kind of like redo our tokenomics over and over and over again, and just kind of like sit on it and really understand what makes good tokenomics. And one of the key aspects is the deflationary tokenomic model that we've built. It's a burn credit mint model. And when we burn the tokens, what happens is you get non-redeemable credits to access the network. And once you've accessed the network and you've used these nodes, we'll then calculate where these rewards should go to. Who were the nodes that essentially gave that service, and we'll mint more tokens to that. But we'll always mint less than we burned. So it constantly kind of comes down, and there's less and less tokens available over time. And it sort of works its way into half of what the supply is. So we have 10 billion tokens, and there's an algorithm that works its way down to half of the tokens. And that is how you make sure that when there's demand for your service, what happens is that you align the token value with the service and the usage of it by limiting the amount of tokens in circulation. And that's how you sort of continue creating value add for any token holder that has the token.
On that topic, could you maybe explain to the listeners like how revenue gets generated? Like, what kind of commercial activities will actually generate revenue? And then a follow-up question as well is, how can you kind of guarantee that a lot of this revenue is actually captured by the token or by the contributors, as opposed to, service providers sitting on top of the network, providing this as a service, which can be a very long B2B enterprise sales process, but ultimately only paying the bare minimum back to the network because it's priced that way. Like, is there any way to kind of make sure that this doesn't happen that much?
The key is that to access the network, you're going to have to use these credits. And there's only way to get these credits is by burning the token. So you already have this very intertwined link between the usage and the network. So access and usage go together. And what you also do is you ensure that there is staking involved to make sure that you slow down the velocity of the token. So essentially what we've done is that we have the protocol layer and we have an applications layer. These are two different legal entities that we have. One is the open source protocol that builds the Posemesh in the network. And then we have the application layer that builds applications on top of the network to use it. The challenge that we have, obviously, when we move towards trying to get enterprise to join in on this journey is they don't really care about the token itself. They would just want to pay fiat and just get the spatial computing solution and use that. And we're not gonna ask them to burn tokens. It's gonna be the app layer that provides the application that will burn these tokens. We call this burn abstraction. And so part of the revenue that you get from using the applications will have to go to burning the tokens every time they access the network.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good way, right? And you really need to make the users or like on the demand side to burn the tokens like you mentioned, but it needs to be very streamlined. Maybe they even sometimes use a credit card to buy credit, but then everything happens in the back end to burn those tokens, right?
The DePIN Association is a vibrant hub of innovation driving the future of decentralized physical infrastructure networks. By harnessing the power of blockchain, they're disrupting traditional infrastructure services, making them more transparent, secure, and efficient. Their mission is to set the industry standards, fuel groundbreaking ideas, and lead the charge toward a more decentralized and resilient world. In the coming months, the DePIN Association will focus on several important initiatives: standardization, developing industry standards to ensure interoperability and security across decentralized infrastructure projects; research, advancing technology and applications through research and development; education and outreach, engaging policymakers, developers, and the public to raise awareness about DePIN's potential; and lastly, events. Join events that foster communication within the DePIN ecosystem. Projects joining the DePIN Association can select a working group to collaborate on shared goals. The association is officially registered in Switzerland. Want to join the association? You can apply today at DePINassociation.com.
And how has the experience been into releasing the token, getting to centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges? I think that's also something that a lot of projects struggle with, right?
It's a huge challenge in this market. I think one of the greatest challenges that any crypto-related project faces today is that the entire crypto industry is now built on value extraction before adoption. And you face this constantly because any service provider that you're going to engage with will be looking at how can I extract value before the next person is trying to extract value on it. And this became very apparent as we were trying to launch our token. Number one, they were asking us to hype the project up to a point where, asking us to get buy some bots so that it looks like we're having a lot of users, which erodes the trust of the actual interested parties. These big centralized exchanges will ask you for a cut. They will ask you for a percentage of your tokens, and VCs continue to want to push you until you get a good centralized exchange, and in the meantime also push the value of the token up so that VCs are on, say, 1000x profit by the time you launch. And so you've hyped the project artificially up to this point. You've given out valuable resources. And then once you launch, it's retail who pays for the downfall of it. And we've seen this now in the latest reports that have come out that all these Binance launches have actually done quite poorly, which is quite surprising. They have the retail users, but the way that everything is set up, it kind of like pushes you to these unfathomable valuations, and you just work your way down from there. And at one point, we were like, okay, enough is enough. We have built a token that is a utility token, and it should be out there. It should be used out there to build up our community and our network. And by the way, in DePIN, your community is your infrastructure, so you want to take care of them, right? Those are the first people you want to take care of if you want to succeed building a DePIN project. And so we were like, you know what? We're not going to waste any more resources trying to market ourselves artificially and then give out tokens outright to all these value extractors to then watch how the thing comes down. I'd rather start from the bottom, like any project. Start from the bottom, work your way up. And so we did a DEX first launch strategy. And it's worked very well for us. We're very excited because we've built deflationary tokenomics. We created daily linear unlocks. We ensured that nobody gets day one unlocks because that would be unfair. And we made sure that everybody would be aligned on this. And so it's actually worked very, very favorably in our favor. We also launched at a time when there was not a lot of broader market liquidity. Still, projects are waiting for that. There's thousands of tokens that will be launched by the end of this year, by the sound of it. And it's going to be a very crowded market. There's going to be a lot of attention to be driven into these thousands of tokens that try and grab your attention so you could buy a few of their tokens. To a point where a lot of our VCs were against what we were doing. And now that we've launched and the token value actually has not collapsed and is actually gone up, if you look at it, they're all very curious on how we did it. And so they're sending me many projects to advise on their token launches today. Today, I advised 2 companies on how to launch their token.
No, it is true, right? Like we see a lot of this happening all the time. And in a way, it's sad that people's like, oh, it is what it is, right? It's like a lot of people that's the way that crypto works. But in a way, even Web2 companies a lot of times happen that because they have, the people have vesting period, the investors. As soon as the project IPOs, if you look at usually the chart of an IPO company, it's the same thing. As a spike goes down and then it runs up again. Like I learned through excitement when I was learning to invest. I bought, I think it was Snapchat IPO. Like, oh, it's a cool company. I'm sure they're going to do well. And then tank immediately after IPO. Like, okay, why is this happening? But I think the good thing about crypto is that in a way we have the power to do that if you are bold enough like you guys, right? It's definitely not easy if you follow the cookie cutters. Because we see a lot on DePIN Hub, for example. We track a lot of social metrics for most projects. And we can see a few months before they try to get listed on Sexes, they go from, they basically 10 to 20x their Twitter follower from the day to another. So it's like, okay, there's something weird here. And then like, oh, they're trying to get listed on Binance. So I guess I understand, right?
A lot of the big questions that I'm getting is like, what should I do with my unlocks? Should it be monthly unlocks or daily linear unlocks? Because now the word in town is, hey, you should be doing daily linear unlocks. Until now, I think a lot of VCs have been flooding projects not to do that. And one of the underlying reasons for that is that if you actually create a monthly unlock, and there are circulating tokens out there, be it from your options model with your market maker, or be it because you allowed a bunch of unlocks at the beginning. There are circulating tokens out there that can be borrowed and given to VCs for these unlocks, these monthly unlocks. So right before the token unlocks, they'll short you. And then right after, they'll long you. And somebody's going to have to, because ultimately, when you're cold starting an ecosystem, it's a zero-sum game. And so somebody has to pay for it. And it's your infrastructure. In a DePIN's case, it's your infrastructure, which is your community. And you want to be very, very careful with that.
How do you go about launching on a DEX? Like, do you work with a market maker? Like, all the liquidity on the other side of the token, whether it's ETH or stablecoin, like, are you the ones providing it, or are you borrowing that, or how do you go about that process?
So we all know that DEXs have automated market makers, and you don't really need a market maker. So I get a lot of people telling me like, hey, why do you have a market maker? Because we have one, right? I'm not an expert. I'm here to build spatial computing protocol, Like I'm not here to, I wasn't here to learn like how to launch tokens. So I need some seriously valuable and trustful advice. And that's the market maker that can give you that. But I mean, it took me very long time to find one that I can trust. And so I have a market maker that helps me with the strategy. It's very key because in markets move 24/7. It's constantly on the move, and we do not have the knowledge to really know what to do when things go south or when things go up. We don't really know. And so I rather have a person that knows and advises us on us, and I would have him on a retainer model because his incentive is to continue receiving the retainer. If it's an options model, essentially the liquidity side of the equation will be coming from the market maker, and it's their money. And if it's their money, you're not deciding anything. When they start dumping your token and you'll ask them to stop dumping your token, they won't listen to you. They'll do what's right for them. And just Max, to answer your question on who put the liquidity, it's us. You put the money. If you put the money, you decide. A bit like not your keys, not your tokens.
Yeah, not your liquidity, not your price, I guess. Ultimately, right? You have your buy pressure, right? Figured out. So no, that's fascinating. I mean, I guess I'm very curious about, and this could be like a amateur's question, but really, we talked about the privacy aspect of what Auki provides, but beyond that, right? If I am maybe a supermarket retailer or somebody that's potentially using this service, how is it better than like a centralized service ultimately, right? A non-DePIN, something that just runs on its own. Is privacy the key value proposition, and like what is there beyond that?
So when it comes to supermarkets, in our case, for example, why would they want to use our service instead of centralized service providers? Well, number one, because we give them the option to own and store the data the way they want. Their IP and their secrets are based on how their shelves look like. And so they want to keep that information secret. Go out into a supermarket and start filming with your camera. And if some staff member sees you, they'll probably tell you to stop filming, because that's their secret sauce. Where is the Coke placed in the shelf? And the other reason why you would want to do this is because we've built a collaborative solution, which means that once you start mapping out these domains and using the QR codes, you can start on one end of the store, and I can start on the other end. And by the time we come together and have scanned a overlapping QR code, we actually be able to stitch everything together. And that's very powerful because these stores are massive. We just mapped out a 5,500 square meter store. And if you use a lot of the solutions that are out there today, it'll take you days, weeks to scan the whole thing on your own. But if you have a collaborative spatial computing solution, we can be 10 people using our iPhones, scanning the store, and in less than a day we'll be done. So it's a scalable solution. And not only that, the way that we set up the software in order for you to set up your domains, it's so easy that we don't even have to go there to set it up ourselves. And that is why we set up a very ambitious goal of setting up 100,000 locations in the next 3 years. And the app layer is going to charge on average about $300 per store per month. And if you do the math, that equates to about $360 million in ARR.
And everything's going to be distributed to the miners, to the scanners. I don't know how you call them.
The node providers, yes. So even if you set up these nodes on a centralized server, it still has to go through the node, right? You can use compute from AWS, or you can use decentralized compute, but it still goes through these nodes.
Yeah, and I think like using compute from AWS and other providers also, you wouldn't be able to use your tokenomics to incentivize the whole supply side and then the demand side as well, right? I think everything being around, because you guys have multiple server types, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
There'll be more coming as well.
Yeah. So right now you were saying like you have the application like company and you have the protocol company, right? The application company is now talking to supermarkets, over time to other types of companies, and really trying to get the demand side up and running and to activate like protocol revenue. Do you have any initiatives going where you would actively hold hands of other community members to do exactly the same thing and kind of really get to scale? Because you can only do so much with your application company, but ultimately if you can kind of franchise it, or you can make it really easy for someone else to talk to their local grocery shop or something like that, say like, hey, can I provide you this service, to then in turn like unlock more and more protocol revenue? Is there anything on that front that you guys are doing or thinking of doing?
First of all, the protocol is an open source protocol, which means that you can build anything you want on it. We just have a head start because we started early, you know? You can build exactly the same application that we've built using the open source technology. And that is the beauty of it. We have an SDK that you can integrate into your software that allows you to have this collaborative spatial computing solution. And so absolutely, we are trying to get developers to develop on the platform. We are curious to see what people might build, and they can build another Cactus. It's the retail spatial AI platform is called Cactus. They can build a Cactus if they want. We just have a head start.
And you have any grants in place to kind of incentivize that initiative?
Yes. So we just released our grant program. You can go on my Twitter. I'm shouting out from the top of my lungs about our grants program. So yeah, please go and check it out.
Yeah. And what is the milestones you guys want to achieve now for the next, let's say, 1 to 5 years?
So right now, like maybe we can look at it a little bit of shorter term if that's okay. By the end of this year, we're looking to launch domains as a service, which we just did actually. And it allows you to set up your own domains at home. We sell these QR codes, pack of QR codes. It's called the Portal Kits. You can get it on our website, and you can set up your own domains anywhere you want and start playing with it and build applications on top. And we want to bring different use cases and show you how you can do it. It's a bit like when Apple built the iPhone. They build a few applications inside to show like what is possible. And we want to spark that same thing. So earlier, a couple years ago, actually, when we were building the metaverse from the ground up, because we raced on in 2021 and the metaverse on the metaverse narrative, and we built this application called Floorcraft, which is this spaceships that fly on the floor, and they have these lasers, and you can all come in and play multiplayer and shoot at each other. The way you, Max, saw it. When I demonstrated it to you in Singapore, is we were using a temporary coordinate system by scanning on the QR code from the phone. Now we've enabled it in domains as well. So if you have a domain at home, you can go and scan that QR code, and you can access this coordinate system. And then Adrian can come afterwards later on and join the game asynchronously. So that's something that we're working on, so that you can have these domain experiences. And then by the end of this year, we're releasing the reconstruction node, so that when you want to have a digital twin that is anchored on these QR codes, that you can use our node to do that. And I'm working on some very interesting partnerships. Might not be putting the nodes on some hardware out there. Maybe.
Just for the listeners out there, like when we were in Singapore, there was this game that you can scan the QR code on the phone, and then through augmented reality, there's this like little spaceship that like drives around the table, on top of the table, and then you can fight with each other. It was super, super interesting. I'll try to put the link as well on that on the podcast. Awesome. Like I guess we're getting closer to the end. Santeri, where can people know more about Auki and the project, the roadmap, and just keep on the loop of everything that you guys are building?
We're posting a ton on Twitter, so you can find us on the @Auki network. We also have a newly released website at auki.ai, and there you can see all the different applications that we built and what the Posemesh is all about. Also LinkedIn, we're using LinkedIn, Twitter, and our website. as the main medium of communication. We do weekly updates on our Discord channel as well. So if you want to join us at Aukiverse Discord channel, that would be fantastic. That's where you can keep up with us. There are a few things that we're doing in the next couple of months. And one of them is that we're going to be at DevCon. We're going to be doing a really cool creative side event. And so if you're interested, just come and check it out. And we'll be talking about DePIN and how DePIN is going to take over the world. It's going to be bigger than the rest of crypto combined. That's our bet. And we are also, because DePIN is such a big space, we are also working on figuring out a way to build a spatial DePIN alliance. I think spatial DePIN warrants an alliance of its own. And I'd be very curious to see if any of the listeners want to hear more about it. We're still working on the details. We haven't finalized anything. So if you have any curiosity, please come and talk to me.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining this episode with Auki Labs and Santeri and Max and Adrian as well, and me. And make sure to go to deepinhub.io, check the Auki project there, subscribe to the newsletter, and join our Telegram, and everything that you can know about DePIN is on deepinhub.io. So thanks so much, you guys, for joining this episode. See you next week for another episode on the DePIN ecosystem. Let's go.